Shaq just wanted a simple cup of coffee. But what he got? Pure humiliation. The moment he stepped into the cafe, all eyes were on him. Not in admiration, in judgment. Then the barista smirked and slammed a dirty mop onto the counter. "Delivery entrance is in the back," she sneered. The whole cafe laughed. But what happened next? Nobody saw coming. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Shaq's fingers tighten around the mop handle, his grip firm but controlled. The weight of the insult lingers in the air like a bad smell, mixing with the aroma of fresh coffee. The entire cafe has gone eerily silent, except for a few hushed whispers and suppressed chuckles. Chloe, still smirking, leans casually against the counter, tapping her manicured nails against the register like she's just waiting for him to react. Her eyes flicker with amusement, as if she's testing him, pushing to see how far she can go. Shaq exhales slowly through his nose, his expression unreadable. He's been in situations like this before. People assuming they could size him up, reduce him to something lesser. It never ended well for them. He lifts the mop slightly, inspecting it like he's actually considering her ridiculous suggestion. A few people in the crowd exchange glances, some amused, others uneasy. Then with a slow, deliberate motion, he places the mop back down on the counter and leans in slightly. His deep voice, calm and steady, cuts through the tension like a knife. "You hand this to all your paying customers, or just the ones who look like me?" A few gasps ripple through the cafe. The smirk on Chloe's face twitches, but she doesn't back down. "Oh, come on," she scoffs, crossing her arms. "It was a joke. Don't be so sensitive." Shaq lets out a small chuckle, cold, amused, but not in the way she expects. He glances around the cafe, taking in the faces of the onlookers. Some look embarrassed, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Others still hold traces of amusement, waiting to see where this goes. A man near the counter, probably in his late 40s with slicked back hair and an expensive watch, chuckles. "Maybe she's right, big guy. You do look like you could handle a mop." Another customer, a businessman in a fitted suit, smirks over his laptop. "Relax, it's just a joke. Rich guys like you can take one, right?" Shaq's gaze flicks between them, then back to Chloe. The message is clear. This isn't just about a joke. It's about how easily people assume they can diminish someone, even when they don't know a thing about them. He slowly nods, picking up his untouched coffee. "Right," he says, his voice still steady. "Just a joke," but his eyes say something else. Without another word, he turns to the young male employee behind the counter. Liam, the only worker who hasn't laughed, who looks downright uncomfortable. "You okay with all this?" Shaq asks. Liam swallows hard, glancing between Chloe and Shaq, trapped in an impossible position. I just work here," he mutters. Chloe rolls her eyes dramatically. "Oh, for crying out loud. You're really making a scene over nothing." Shaq studies Liam for a second longer, then looks back at Chloe. "You sure about that?" Before she can answer, the cafe door swings open. Hard. A new voice enters the mix, and suddenly things are about to get a whole lot more interesting. Liam's throat goes dry as Shaq's deep, steady voice cuts through the cafe's lingering chuckles. The young employee shifts uncomfortably, his fingers gripping the edge of the counter. He knows the right answer. He knows this isn't okay, but his boss is just a few feet away, watching. Chloe stands there smirking, arms crossed like she owns the place. Shaq doesn't break eye contact. "Well?" Liam swallows hard. His gaze flickers to Chloe, then to Glenn, the cafe manager, who has just stepped out from the back. Glenn, in his mid-50s, with thinning hair and a belly that strains against his dress shirt, stands with his arms folded. His eyes hold a hint of amusement, like he's enjoying the show. The silence is thick. I just make coffee," Liam finally mumbles, looking down. Shaq exhales through his nose, nodding slowly, like he expected that answer. The cafe's quiet, but not because of regret. If anything, it's because everyone is waiting, watching to see what Shaq is going to do. And then, right on cue, the businessman in the tailored suit decides to speak up again. "Oh, come on," he says, shaking his head. "It was just a joke. If you can't handle a little ribbing, maybe money's made you soft." A few people chuckle again, the tension easing, but only for them. Shaq tilts his head, studying the man now. He's probably in his late 40s, with perfectly combed salt and pepper hair and an expensive watch peeking out from under his sleeve. The kind of guy who never had to clean a floor in his life, but would happily joke about those who do. Shaq doesn't say a word. He just nods at the businessman's laptop sitting open on the counter. You work corporate? Shaq asks. The businessman chuckles. Yeah, so? Shaq shrugs. Just wondering if I should walk into your office, slap a mop on your desk, and tell you to clean up after me. The businessman's smirk falters. The cafe's amusement dims just a little. Not the same thing, the man mutters. Shaq leans in slightly. Why not? The businessman has no answer. Chloe, sensing the shift, rolls her eyes dramatically and shoves her hip against the counter. Geez, you're really milking this, huh? She scoffs. I mean, look at you. You're rich. You've got everything. What do you care what some barista says? Shaq doesn't react. Not immediately. Instead, he picks up his coffee cup, rolling it slowly between his hands. The liquid inside swirls, a perfect metaphor for what's building in the air. I care, he says finally, his voice calm but firm, because this isn't about me. It's about what you think you can get away with. Chloe laughs again, but it's forced now. Oh, please, don't turn this into some big moral lesson. Shaq nods at Liam, still standing awkwardly behind the counter. I think you already did. The cafe door swings open. Again. And this time, the presence stepping inside is about to shift everything. The cafe door swings shut behind a new customer, but no one notices. All eyes are locked on Glenn, the manager, who stands in the doorway with his arms folded, his posture dripping with arrogance. His dark blue polo shirt is tucked a little too tight over his belly, and the way he squints at Shaq makes it clear. He already knows what's going on, and he already knows whose side he's taking. Problem here? Glenn asks, his voice carrying that fake politeness, the kind that's only used when someone already has their mind made up. Chloe, emboldened by his presence, leans against the counter, her smirk widening. Oh, nothing, boss. Just a big guy who can't take a joke. Shaq slowly turns his head, his eyes locking onto Glenn's with an unreadable expression. Glenn barely glances at him before looking around at the cafe. He clocks the other customers, some still chuckling, others shifting in their seats, suddenly aware that maybe, just maybe, things have gone too far. But instead of trying to de-escalate, he doubles down. Then maybe, Glenn says, his tone casual, dismissive, he should take his business elsewhere. Silence. Liam, still frozen behind the counter, flinches. He looks between Glenn and Shaq, his face caught somewhere between horror and disbelief. Shaq tilts his head slightly, studying Glenn like he's trying to figure him out. So that's how you run things here? His voice is calm, measured. Glenn shrugs, unfazed. My cafe, my rules. And there it is. The cafe shifts. The quiet hum of background noise, coffee machines steaming, plates clinking, feels distant now. A few customers glance at each other, unsure of whether they should be entertained or concerned. A young woman near the window whispers to her friend, "This is not going to end well." Shaq takes a deep breath through his nose, exhaling slowly. He doesn't look mad. No raised voice, no clenched fists, just stillness. Then with deliberate slowness, he places the coffee cup down on the counter. The porcelain makes a soft clink as it touches the surface. Glenn watches, unimpressed. Chloe looks like she's trying not to laugh. Shaq wipes his hands on his hoodie, his movements slow and methodical. Finally, he meets Glenn's gaze again. All right, Shaq says, his voice almost too soft. Let's see how that works out for you. Someone near the door whispers, Is that guy recording? Heads start to turn as a phone is lifted. Someone's been filming this whole time, and the video's about to change everything. The tension in the cafe crackles like static electricity. Conversations have dwindled to hushed whispers, and the sound of steaming milk and clinking cups feels distant now, like background noise in a scene no one can look away from. Near the back of the cafe, Mia, a college student in an oversized hoodie, slowly pulls out her phone. Her fingers hover over the record button for a split second before she presses it. Y'all seeing this? She murmurs to her friend, eyes wide. This dude literally just wanted a coffee. Her friend Jake glances around, noticing other customers shifting in their seats. A few of them exchange uncomfortable glances, debating whether to step in or stay out of it. But then another hand reaches for a phone, then another. A businessman near the window casually adjusts his tie as he lifts his device, pretending to text, but angling his camera just right. A teenager in a school uniform props her phone against a napkin holder, letting it record hands-free. This isn't just an awkward customer interaction anymore. It's turning into something bigger. Glenn, the manager, notices the movement out of the corner of his eye. His lips press into a thin line. His voice, once smug and dismissive, hardens. "All right, enough of that," he snaps. "Put the phones away. There's nothing to see here." Mia doesn't budge. Neither does anyone else. Shaq exhales a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. "You sure about that?" Chloe scoffs, crossing her arms. "What, you gonna cry to the internet now? Real classy." Shaq finally turns to her, his expression unreadable. "Nah," he says smoothly. "Just letting y'all keep digging your own hole." A murmur runs through the cafe. Even the customers who were previously entertained by the exchange are starting to sense the shift. Glenn steps forward, his jaw tightening. He knows where this is headed, and he doesn't like it one bit. "That's enough," he growls. "You're making a scene. Take your damn coffee and go." But Shaq doesn't move. The air is thick with anticipation. It's like watching a game where everyone knows the losing team is about to collapse, but no one wants to be the first to say it. And then, the cafe door swings open again, the bell jingling sharply. But this time, it's not just another customer. It's someone nobody expected, and their arrival's about to change everything. The cafe door swings open with a sharp chime, drawing everyone's attention. A man steps inside, tall and commanding, his tailored navy suit crisp against the morning light. His polished shoes barely make a sound on the tile floor, yet his presence alone shifts the energy in the room. Conversations drop to murmurs, then fade into complete silence. Glenn stiffens behind the counter, his smug expression vanishing as if someone had flipped a switch. He swallows, his hands gripping the edge of the counter. "Sir, wasn't expecting you today." The man, Mr. Bennett, the cafe's owner, doesn't respond right away. Instead, his sharp gaze sweeps over the scene. The scattered mop, the untouched coffee cup, Shaq's towering form, the sea of recording phones. The tension in the air thickens. "Looks like I picked a good day to stop by," Bennett finally says, his tone smooth but cold. Chloe, who had been riding high on her arrogance moments ago, shrinks slightly, her smirk faltering. Shaq remains relaxed, arms folded across his broad chest, watching the shift in power like a spectator at a game he already knows the outcome of. Glenn clears his throat, trying to regain composure. "Sir, this is just a misunderstanding. Just a little joke blown out of proportion." Bennett doesn't even look at him. His gaze is locked onto Shaq, studying him, as if putting the pieces together in real time. His phone buzzes in his pocket, but he ignores it. Instead, he sighs, rubbing his temple like a man who already knows this is going to be a long day. "Sir," Bennett finally says, addressing Shaq directly, "I'm guessing you're the reason my phone's been blowing up." The entire cafe holds its breath, waiting for Shaq's response. But instead of answering, he just smirks. Because now the real game begins. Mr. Bennett exhales sharply, dragging a hand down his face like a man who just walked into a disaster he doesn't have time for. The cafe is dead silent, everyone watching, waiting. His gaze flicks to Glenn first, then to Chloe. Neither dares to speak now. "Someone," Bennett says slowly, his voice dangerously calm, "want to explain why my employees are acting like clowns in my establishment?" Glenn, still trying to salvage the situation, lets out a forced chuckle. "Sir, it's just a misunderstanding. The big guy—" Bennett's head snaps toward him, eyes cold. "Shaquille O'Neal," he corrects, his voice cutting like a blade. "NBA legend, business mogul, philanthropist. And let's not forget, a man who owns more businesses than you can count. The last person you want to pull this nonsense on." A wave of murmurs ripples through the cafe. Some customers shift uncomfortably. Others, those who recognized Shaq from the moment he walked in, now realize just how badly Glenn and Chloe screwed up. But Chloe? She still doesn't get it. She crosses her arms, rolling her eyes. "I don't care who he is. He walked in here acting entitled." The entire cafe sucks in a collective breath. Bennett's expression darkens. His next words are measured, but the anger beneath them is unmistakable. "Entitled?" He shakes his head, stepping toward her. "He paid for a coffee, and you handed him a mop." Chloe's mouth opens, but no words come out. Even she realizes she's pushed too far. Bennett turns to the customers. Did anyone else here witness this? Liam, the only employee who hadn't joined in the humiliation, finally finds his voice. His hands are clenched at his sides as he clears his throat. Sir, they weren't joking. They were harassing him. Bennett closes his eyes for a brief second, as if he's counting to 10 to keep his cool. Then with a slow inhale, he straightens his tie. I really hope this wasn't going to be one of those conversations, he mutters. Then he turns to Shaq, his tone shifting. Mr. O'Neill, he says, carefully respectful, how do you want to handle this? The entire cafe holds its breath. Shaq finally leans forward, a smirk playing at his lips. Oh, I've got a couple ideas. The cafe's atmosphere shifts. The once laughing customers are now silent, sensing the weight of what's happening. Conversations have stopped, and even the sound of the espresso machine hissing in the background feels distant. Shaq stands firm, his towering presence making Chloe's once smug expression falter. He tilts his head slightly, his deep voice steady but sharp. So you're asking me what to do with your employees? Mr. Bennett exhales, adjusting his suit jacket as if trying to collect himself. He's not used to being caught off guard, but today his entire business is on the line. Look, I know what's at stake here, he says carefully. You've got every right to take this public, take legal action, whatever you want. Chloe shifts her weight from one foot to the other, gripping her apron as if that will keep her grounded. Her usual confidence is gone, replaced by something closer to panic. Shaq doesn't answer right away. He taps his fingers on the counter, pretending to think. The pause stretches long enough to make Chloe uncomfortable. Glenn, standing beside her, swallows hard, the realization of the situation sinking in. Finally, Shaq speaks. His voice is calm, too calm. All right, he says, his eyes locking onto Chloe. I want her to apologize, genuinely. A scoff escapes Chloe's lips before she can stop herself. I'm not apologizing to some... Mr. Bennett's head snaps in her direction. His voice cuts through the air like a blade. Then you can go home. Chloe blinks. What? Bennett doesn't flinch. His tone is final. If you can't treat any customer with respect, you can't work here. Simple Glenn takes a half step forward, his voice shaky now. Come on, sir. It was just a joke. Bennett turns his cold gaze to him. Then I guess you'll both be looking for new jobs. A stunned silence follows. Chloe's face flushes, her hands trembling as she tries to process what just happened. You can't be serious, she says, but the panic in her voice betrays her. She glances around the cafe, searching for someone to back her up. No one does. Even the customers who had laughed with her earlier are looking away, avoiding her gaze. Shaq steps forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the counter. He leans down slightly, his deep voice low, but powerful. Still think it's funny now? Chloe swallows hard. For the first time, she has nothing to say. Her lips part as if she wants to argue, but no words come out. The weight of her actions is finally crashing down on her, and from the look in Mr. Bennett's eyes, she knows this isn't something she can walk away from. The tension in the cafe is suffocating. The air feels thick, charged with an unspoken energy. Chloe's face is flushed, her fists clenched so tightly her knuckles turn white. She glares at Shaq, then at Mr. Bennett, her pride fighting a losing battle against reality. This is ridiculous, she snaps, her voice cutting through the silence like a jagged knife. All because he got his feelings hurt? A few people in the cafe murmur, but no one laughs this time. The weight of the moment is settling in. Even Glenn, usually smug and composed, looks uneasy. Mr. Bennett, arms crossed, exhales slowly. His voice is calm but firm. No, Chloe, not because of feelings. Because I don't tolerate discrimination in my businesses. Chloe scoffs, rolling her eyes. Oh, please, this is about him being famous. If this was some regular guy, nobody would care. Bennett's jaw tightens. He glances at Shaq, who stands unmoved, observing the situation like a chess master watching his opponent self-destruct. You really think this is about who he is? Bennett shakes his head. No, this is about what you did. You treated a paying customer like dirt. You humiliated him in front of everyone. And now, instead of taking responsibility, you're doubling down. Glenn, sensing the situation slipping further out of control, tries to step in. His voice is less confident now, more desperate. Sir, let's not overreact. It was a misunderstanding. She was just... Bennett cuts him off with a sharp glare. His patience is running thin. Overreact? He leans forward slightly. I own this cafe, and you two just lost me thousands in bad press. Chloe's expression flickers. Just for a moment, reality is starting to sink in. Customers shift uncomfortably in their seats, some whispering among themselves. Others just watch, fascinated by the downfall unfolding before them. A woman near the back shakes her head. She did this to herself. But Chloe isn't done. Her pride won't let her admit defeat. You know what? She straightens her shoulders, her voice dripping with defiance. Fine. I quit. Glenn's head snaps toward her. His face drains of color. Chloe, don't. But she's already untying her apron, yanking it off and throwing it onto the counter. With one last glare at Shaq, she storms toward the door. As she reaches for the handle, she turns back, her voice laced with venom. This whole place is a joke. Then, slam! The door rattles as it shuts behind her. The cafe is silent. Customers glance at each other, unsure of what to do or say. Bennett doesn't move, doesn't flinch. He simply turns, his sharp eyes locking onto Glenn. And you? He asks, his voice dangerously low. Glenn swallows hard. He thought he had escaped the worst of it. He was wrong. Glenn's face is drained of color. His mouth opens slightly, but no words come out. The silence in the cafe is suffocating, every eye locked on him. Moments ago, he was the one in charge, barking orders, backing Chloe up, treating Shaq like he didn't belong. Now he's standing there, waiting for his fate to be decided by the very man he disrespected. I messed up, Glenn finally mutters, his voice barely above a whisper. Bennett doesn't even blink. His arms are crossed, his expression unreadable. Yeah, you did. A thick pause follows. Customers shift in their seats. Workers behind the counter exchange nervous glances. Bennett turns to Shaq. You want him gone too? Glenn sucks in a sharp breath. His fingers tighten into fists. The weight of his career hangs in the balance. He knows if Shaq says the word, he's done. Finished. Shaq tilts his head slightly, studying him. The tension is unbearable. Then he exhales, shaking his head. Nope. Glenn's entire body sags with relief. Thank you. But he does. Shaq doesn't even look at Glenn. Instead, he points past him, straight at Liam. The young worker freezes, blinking rapidly. Me? Shaq nods, a slow grin forming. Yeah, you're the new manager. For a full 3 seconds, no one moves. Then, the cafe erupts. Applause breaks out. Customers cheer. A few even whistle. Liam, still processing the words, looks around as if he expects this to be a prank. His lips part, but no sound comes out. What? Me? He stammers again, pointing at himself. You're serious? Shaq laughs. You're the only one here who had the guts to do what was right. That's what leadership looks like. Bennett nods in agreement. Shaq's right. He turns to Glenn, his voice carrying finality. You had your chance. Pack your stuff. Glenn looks like he might throw up. His lips pressed together, his entire body stiff. For a moment, it seems like he might argue. Fight back. Try to save himself. But he sees the way the crowd is looking at him now. Judging, disappointed, done with him. He swallows hard. His hands shake as he unclips his name tag and slams it onto the counter. Fine, he mutters. His steps are stiff as he heads to the back to collect his things. As the door swings shut behind him, all eyes shift to Liam. He still looks stunned, his hands shaking slightly. Shaq claps a hand on his shoulder. You got this? Liam blinks up at him, then straightens his back. He swallows hard and nods. Yeah, I got this. The cafe buzzes with excitement, while in the back, Glenn clenches his jaw, realizing the weight of what he just lost. The energy in the cafe is electric. Customers are still murmuring about what just happened, how in the span of minutes, everything flipped upside down. Chloe's gone. Glenn's out of a job. And Liam? Liam's still standing behind the counter, his face frozen in disbelief. Shaq, towering over him, leans in with a knowing smirk. All right, boss. First rule as manager? Liam blinks rapidly, his mind still catching up. Make better coffee? His voice cracks slightly and a few people chuckle. Shaq throws his head back laughing. Nah. First rule. Drinks are on me. For a beat, the cafe is silent. Then, the entire place erupts into cheers. What? No way! A college kid shouts, throwing his hands in the air. Best day ever! A woman near the counter exclaims, clutching her latte like it's now a golden ticket. The baristas still working behind the counter stare at each other in shock, unsure if they should actually start pouring free drinks. Liam, shaking off his nerves, looks at Shaq for confirmation. Shaq claps him on the shoulder. You heard me. Let him have it. Liam nods, turning to the others. You guys heard the man. Start brewing. A fresh round of cheers explodes as the espresso machines fire up. Cups start sliding across the counter, and the atmosphere shifts from tense to celebratory in seconds. Bennett, arms crossed, nods approvingly. Not bad, O'Neill. Not bad at all. Shaq shrugs. Figured this place could use a reset. In the midst of the excitement, Liam turns back to Shaq. His hands are still shaking a little, but his voice is stronger now. I don't even know what to say. Shaq grins. Say thank you by running this place right. Liam straightens up, something shifting in his expression. Determination replacing uncertainty. I won't let you down. Shaq nods. I know. Meanwhile, Mia, the woman who had been recording from the start, is typing furiously on her phone. The video she captured, already trimmed and edited, is uploading. Her caption, Shaq just changed this cafe forever. Respect to Shaq's legend. Cliffhanger. As the video finishes posting, notifications start popping up instantly. Likes, shares, comments. Mia's eyes widen. She just hit 10,000 views in under a minute. This is about to blow up. Within an hour, Mia's phone is on fire. Notifications flood her screen at an impossible speed. Likes, shares, comments piling up by the second. 10,000 views, 50,000, 100,000. The video is going viral at lightning speed. The caption she had quickly typed, Shaq just changed this cafe forever. Respect, Shaq legend, was now pinned at the top of a storm of reactions, the headlines spreading across social media. Barista harasses Shaq, then gets instant karma. News outlets jump on it instantly. Major pages repost the clip. Twitter explodes with debates, memes, and reactions. How do you not recognize Shaq? Imagine ruining your whole career over a cup of coffee. Shaq didn't even have to raise his voice. Just stood there like a boss and let karma do its thing. This should be a masterclass on handling disrespect. And then, Chloe sees it. Sitting at home, her phone won't stop buzzing. Every notification is worse than the last. OMG, you're trending, but not in a good way. Bro, check Twitter. They got your face on a meme. Hey, Chloe, what's it like to get humbled by an NBA legend? Hope you weren't planning on working in customer service again. Her stomach sinks. She taps the video, watching in horror as the comments rip her apart. She thought she was untouchable, until Shaq walked in. Love how he never raised his voice. Just let them ruin themselves. She had all that attitude and still lost everything amo. She throws her phone onto the couch, heart racing. This isn't happening, she whispers. But it is, and it's only getting worse. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Liam is getting a very different kind of attention. His phone, too, is lighting up. But instead of hate, it's opportunities. Hey, Liam, saw the video. We're hiring for a manager position at our coffee shop. Interested? Respect for standing up for what's right. If you're ever looking for work, hit me up. Dude, you handled that situation like a pro. Big things coming your way. Liam rubs the back of his neck, overwhelmed. I can't believe this. Shaq, sitting at a booth, watching it all unfold, just grins. He already knew how this was going to play out. Justice was served. No yelling, no fighting, just letting the truth do the work. Just as Shaq leans back, his phone buzzes. He glances at the screen, eyebrows raising. It's a call from a major news station. They want an interview. This story is about to go nationwide. Just when it seems like the story's over, an unexpected twist changes everything. The cafe feels different, lighter, warmer. It had only been a few days since the chaos unfolded, but the shift was undeniable. Without Chloe's sneers and Glenn's arrogance, the place had transformed. Customers lingered longer, chatting freely. The tension that once clung to the air like static was gone. Shaq steps inside, his massive frame casting a long shadow across the wooden floor. A few customers glance up, recognition sparking in their eyes. Then the claps start. First a slow, hesitant applause, then another. Soon the entire cafe erupts in cheers. Shaq chuckles, shaking his head. All right. Y'all act like I won a championship. From behind the counter, Liam laughs. But this time, it's a laugh filled with confidence. I mean, you kinda did, Liam says, tossing a towel over his shoulder. The name tag on his chest, manager, shines under the cafe lights. Shaq gestures toward him. Looking good, kid. Liam scratches the back of his neck. Still getting used to it. Kinda weird having people actually listen to me. Shaq smirks. You earned it. Before Liam can respond, the cafe door swings open again. Mr. Bennett steps inside, his usual stiff posture softened by something unusual. A smile. Shaq raises a brow. Didn't expect to see you here. Bennett claps him on the back. Didn't expect to be here. But I got to thinking after everything that went down. He pauses, scanning the cafe. I think we both know this place is different now. Better. Shaq nods. No argument here. Bennett exhales as if settling into a decision he's been wrestling with. So, I had an idea. A big one. Shaq leans against the counter, intrigued. Let's hear it. Bennett smirks. How about you invest in this cafe? For the second time that week, the entire cafe goes silent. Liam's towel nearly slips from his shoulder. Customers exchange glances. Even the cashier, mid-order, freezes with their hand hovering over the register. Shaq tilts his head. Invest? You saying you want to sell me the place? Bennett chuckles. Not quite. Let's call it co-ownership. A beat passes, then another. Shaq studies him. Only one condition. Bennett's smirk widens. Let me guess. Shaq turns to Liam and points. He stays in charge. Liam's jaw nearly hits the floor. Wait, what? Liam blinks, glancing between them as if waiting for the punchline. Shaq grins. Kid, you stood up when no one else would. That's leadership. Bennett nods, impressed. I like it. Liam swallows, straightens his posture, and nods. I won't let you down. Shaq extends a hand to Bennett. A solid handshake. A deal. And just like that, Shaq wasn't just a customer anymore. He owned the place.